Hello SGO and welcome to Slurs Part 2. Moving on from the basic technique that we worked on in Part 1, we are going to develop the balance across your left hand by combining upward and downward slurs and by continuity of movement. We're going to start off with basic groups of basic pairs of slurs, one upward and one downward, and we will then reverse the pairs and then also change over the upward and downward, and this gives us every possible movement that we want. There are 3 sets of fingerings. Fingers 1 and 2 combined with 3 and 4, 1 and 3 combined with 2 and 4, and 2 and 3 combined with 1 and 4. We'll start off with set 1, which is 1 and 2, starting with 1 and 2 and 4 and 3. We're going to play each group twice and then pause before moving on to the next one, which I will describe in the pause. Okay. So on one string, upward slur, 1 to 2, downward slur, 4 to 3. We'll now reverse that. 4 to 3, 1 to 2. We're going to change the upward and downward. So downward from 2 to 1, upward 3 to 4, and then reverse the order, upward 3 to 4, down to 2 to 1. Set 2 is 1 to 3, 4 to 2. Change the order, 4 to 2, 1 to 3. Reverse the direction, 3 down to 1, 2 up to 4. Change them over. And then set 3, which is upward 2 to 3, downward 4 to 1. Change them over. 4 to 1, 2 to 3. Change direction, 3 down to 2, 1 up to 4. And then change them over, 1 up to 4, 3 down to 2. You'll notice that I'm working really slowly and keeping a very regular rhythm. And what I can do with that is recognise the feeling of transferring the weight from finger to finger for both slurs and get the feeling also of the relaxation of the finger that you've slurred from. And this basic movement is really, really important as we then go on to do a more difficult exercise or a more continuous movement. Our next job with those slurs is going to be to join them together, staying on one string. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a set. If we do the first set, it's going to be, if I read it out first, it's going to be 1, 2, 4, 3, 4, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 4, and 3, 4, 2, 1. So exactly what we've just done, once for each group and continuously. So we'll demonstrate using that set. You might find that you get some odd noises, like I just did then. Obviously, as your technique improves, that sort of thing will improve. Don't worry about it. What you're aiming for is the proper weight transfer, the relaxation and the accuracy. So you feel an even strength across all 4 fingers. Let's do that same exercise with the next 2 sets. And the third set. As you can see, there's certain fingers and certain groups of fingers that you'll find more difficult than others. For me, it was starting off there with finger 4, the rolling off of finger 4. But after I've repeated it, it does become easier. So the repetition is also very important. You can repeat it as many times as is necessary for you at the level that you are at. Okay, we can then move those patterns across the strings. So I'll give you a demonstration. We're going to work each group one at a time. A demonstration from the first set, which is 1, 2, 4, 3. The fact that we're using exactly the same groups and combinations here is really helpful because each level of exercise is increasing difficulty. But so if we have one thing that we can use and then gradually increase the difficulty with that one thing, it becomes very comfortable and easy to remember. I'll do one more demonstration of that technique, but what I'm going to do this time is only use 3 strings on the guitar. Moving on to string 6 is obviously quite a big increase in difficulty because you have the stretch of your hand as well. So what you can do, if you don't feel as if you want to move onto that level of difficulty straight away, is just use the 3 treble strings. So I'm going to do a group from set 2. We'll go from 3, 1, 2, 4, just on the treble strings. And you can see that I'm not really putting as much strain through my hands, so I can keep concentrating on the technique and the combination of the upward and downward slurs without worrying about reaching over to string 6. An advanced level of difficulty for this exercise is to split the groups in half so that we are playing the upward slur on one string and the downward slur on another string. So as an example, we've got using 1, 2 and 4, 3, 1 and 2 on string 6, 4 and 3 on string 5, 1, 2 on 4, 4, 3 on 3, 1, 2 on 2 and 4, 3 on 1. I would then stay on 1 for 1, 2 and then 4, 3, etc. as I come down. Changing the order of the fingers on the different strings. It might seem like a very small adjustment, but it does make a difference because what we're doing now is we're combining a slur movement with a walking across movement as well over the strings. So we can do that exercise using all of the different patterns. I'll do another demonstration of it using 3 strings. We'll work from set 2 of the fingerings, which remember is 1, 3, 2 and 4. And I'm going to do 2, 4, 3, 1. When I'm only using 3 strings, I would probably do the exercise at least twice across the 3. So with that, you've got a little bit more exercise, wrong way, a little bit more exercise to work on. So probably if you're working on 3 strings, I would repeat that twice. And of course you can use repetition with all of these exercises. Okay, the next exercise, moving away from the pairs, we're going to be combining upward and downward slurs in one movement. So we're moving now more towards the sort of technique that you need for ornamentation, for example, in pieces. So here we have 3 groups. We've got fingers 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, and 3, 4, 3. Okay, so first of all, we do that on 1 string, and we're going to use a rhythm. This is important because we need to start this movement slowly. If you go too fast too soon, you end up snatching, it becomes uneven and unbalanced. So I'm going to start off using a rhythm which is crotchet, crotchet, minim for my slurs, and then quaver, quaver, crotchet, and then semi-quaver, semi-quaver, quaver. Now obviously it's very difficult to count the rhythm because you can get muddled up between numbers of fingers and beats. So I usually tap my foot, although when we're using the quavers and semi-quavers, counting 1 and can help. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start off with 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1 in one movement like this. And we're going to do it with the different rhythms. So starting off with crotchets. I'll do that again. Now quavers. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And now semi-quavers. So you'll notice, particularly with the last example, that I left a gap between my semi-quaver slurs. And the reason for that is to make sure that I don't build up tension as I'm developing the technique. Obviously, if you feel that you're at a level where you can play on every beat, we can make that an exercise which goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see that each of the simple groups of fingers, if you like, that I'm using for my exercises can be developed to as advanced an exercise as is suitable for you. Let's try that with 2 and 3. The other thing I want to make clear here is that as we're doing the slow exercise, we're trying to actually lift or relax off the string the finger that you're slurring from. So as I go from finger 1, hammer onto finger 2, my first finger becomes relaxed off the string and then goes down again for the roll off back onto finger 1. Now, if we're working very quickly, especially in a piece of music, you may find that your first finger wouldn't come off the string, but developing the ability to relax your first finger from the hammer and then the roll off means that you'll get much more relaxation in your technique, as even if your finger doesn't come off the string, as you develop the speed of the slur. We'll just do that with 3 and 4. So the important thing with that one is as a way of increasing speed, we need to keep a rhythm and a pulse. And if we can do that working with the same crotchet pulse all the way through, we've got a very definite progression for increasing the speed of your movement. We can then do that exercise across the strings with one pattern. I'll work for the moment on just the 3 strings, okay, and I'm going to do each pattern separately, so the 1 2 1, the 2 3 2, sorry, and the 3 4 3. As I said earlier, don't worry about any extraneous noises for the moment. As your technique improves, that will improve. You'll also notice as I work across the strings that as I go from one string to the next, I'm starting with the other finger. So with all of these patterns, we can start with the upward slur, or we can start with a roll-off, the downward slur. And you want to practice both of these options. Now you can practice them separately on a single string. When we're moving across the strings, to get a smoother walk, it's helpful to do the, as an example, 1, 2, 1, and then start with 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 1, and then I would reverse it, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And it means I'm not doing this. I'm not breaking the movement by starting on the by having to hop, and it's the continuity of movement there that is important. Okay, working on from that, we're going to combine the 3 groups into a continuous movement, staying on one string. So we're going to go from 1 2 1, 2 3 2, 3 4 3, back to 2 3 2, and then repeat. I'll do it twice. We'll start off with it in that direction. It's great, this exercise, because it feels really lovely when you get it working smoothly and you can really feel the weight of your fingers moving across your hand. We're now going to work with the group in the opposite direction, so starting off with the roll-off. So it's going to be 2 1 2 3 2 3 4 3 4 3 2 3. As we work across the strings with that exercise, we can do the single notes all the way across that I demonstrated. We can also do the group. So for example, and then moving on to the next string. So you can take this as far as you like to. We can also split the strings as we did before. So for this exercise, I'll show you going all the way across the guitar. And we're going to use 1 2 1 and 2 3 2. So starting on string 6, 1 2 1, string 5 with 2 3, string 4, string 3, string 1 2, and string 1. Stay on string 1 for 1 2 1, string 2, string 3, 4, 5, 6. The combinations, all the different combinations of movement across, but also of groups of fingers and upward and downward slurs, are working our brains as well as our fingers. And it's absolutely brilliant for developing balance, accuracy, relaxation and coordination. Fantastic for general left-hand technique and not just for working on slurs. When we move on to the more advanced exercises, as we have been doing all the way through, it's very important that we don't sacrifice the basic movement. So I would say always go back to Slurs Part 1 or the early ones in this exercises, maybe just as the warm-up, that you actually get the movement working, and then in your technical practice you can develop the exercises to the more difficult levels. Next, we've got 3 notes together in one movement in one direction. So there are 4 groups here. We've got 1, 2, 3 and 3, 2, 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 4, 3, 2. We can practice a group separately on a single string. So for example, 1, 2, 3, and then our 2, 3, 4, and 4, 3, 2. And then we can also move across the strings with one group. Again, if you wanted to stick to a smaller amount of strings. These groups of 3 notes slurred together really do highlight strength and individuality of your fingers and the balance in your hand. Okay, so the next level here we're working out the combinations. So we're going to start off with combinations of those groups working in one direction. So first of all we've got 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. And now we'll reverse that. And now with downward slurs. 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 3. And then reverse the 2. We're now going to develop that exercise, so we're combining upward and downward slurs. Starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. And I've got reverse those. Using as many different combinations as possible means that I cover all possibilities of movement between fingers, slurring or articulated or walking as well. If you've got the patterns written down, you can then refer to that and combine them in as many different ways as you want to develop different parts of your technique. Finally, we're just going to finish with 4 groups of 4 slurs, all in one slur with change of movement up and down. And this is sort of developing sometimes runs of scales in pieces. I was looking at some pieces recently where I was needing to do that, and also ornaments. We can use any of the patterns that we've already used today. The first 3 sets of patterns can be used in this way, but I'm just going to use 4, and those are 1, upward to 2, upward for 4, and then down to 3. And then we've got 1, up to 3, up to 4, and down to 2. Starting on 4, down to 3, down to 1, and up to 2. And then reversing that, so 4, down to 2, down to 1 and up to 3. I can do those exercises repeating what I've just done on one string and then also moving across the strings. So I'll demonstrate those moving across just the 3 strings. So 1, 2, 4, 3 the first. One, 3, 4, 2. Four, 3, 1, 2. And then finally 4, 2, 1, 3. These groupings are obviously quite advanced. We want to be looking at everything that we've done today in a sort of order before we get to working on the 4 fingers together. You want to feel comfortable with your upward and downward slurs, but then you're just developing your ability by using the 4 together to a more advanced level. There is a PDF document on the website which links to this video. I realise that the video is quite long and there's a lot of detail, so the best thing is to use the document as well and then use parts of the video to help you to see how the actions work. On the document I've used colours, blue for upward slurs and red for downward slurs, so that it's a little bit, it's immediately clear what you're doing. Keep working through the basic as well as the advanced. You don't have to practice for half an hour. You can, have a series of exercises throughout a week, or separate them out into 5-minute sections to do on different days. Hopefully, thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Happy slurring.